Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. A very important week for Lazio. And it was a very important weekend also for our team because finally we got an away win. And looking at what happened to Roma and Napoli, Lazio is back on track. The Champions League is not that far away, and we're playing Champions League next Wednesday. Alison McKenzie, good morning. Lazio Bayern Munich, a very difficult match. Do you think that the fact that Bayern lost Saturday it's an advantage, or create a bigger issue for Lazio next Wednesday?
I don't follow the Bundesliga very closely, but from what I've read, it sounds like they're all very angry. And you can understand why. They're very used to winning that league, and they're now in a position where Leverkusen are the favourites, I guess, and have just beaten them in that big top of the table game, very comfortably beaten them. I saw that some of the fans had put banners outside the training ground telling Tuchel to get out. And yeah, I don't know. I just have the sense that with it being an away game where they can kind of get away from that anger a little bit, it's really all about how the players respond. And for me, I don't like the sound of this because I feel like those players are going to come to Rome with a huge point to prove. And Bayern Munich aren't a team that you associate with complacency anyway, but I really think there's no chance of any complacency on their part this time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it would have been better if Bayern won easily that game and, came here with overconfidence and maybe we could win that game. But anyway, it's going to be I hope, an open game, to be honest with you. After Lazio performance Saturday, I think I'm pleased with what I saw. And the Stadio Olimpico will be packed. We are close to the sold out. So that's really important. We talked very often about how important the crowd is in a Champions League game, in a European competition. So that will be a huge factor, I hope, right?
Well, yeah, it's the biggest Lazio game that there's been really since the last time we played Bayern. And on that occasion, there was, COVID restrictions and we didn't have the chance to have a full stadium. So it's a massive occasion. And I'm really, really happy about this win over Cagliari for many reasons. But the biggest one, to be honest, is just that it's allowed people's moods to lift a bit. And we know as well as anyone doing this podcast every week how moods shift from week to week depending on what was the last thing you saw. But the difference this time, I guess, is that the players seem to have been saying that seems to be the main message coming from the camp on the back of this, has been that they've been able to get back a bit of the kind of enjoyment of their games and a bit of, I don't know, not thinking about, not overthinking everything and just kind of going and expressing themselves. And clearly Cagliari is a slightly different challenge to Bayern Munich. So there is that. But I think that at least they seem to be approaching this with a good mentality, not this kind of huge weight of pressure crushing down on them, which was happening in the week leading up to this match. And yeah, hopefully that translates to the stands, because we know Lazio are capable of producing performances in big games. We saw a lot of that last season in particular. This is a whole other challenge. There's no doubt about it.
So, yeah, you forgot to mention something very important, that we finally understood what that post is used for, right? Those posts, you have to put the ball inside that thing they call goal, and you get points, you score, right? Finally, Lazio decided, oh, well, let's shot on target sometime. And I think that was the biggest achievement, the biggest thing we realized, right? Against Cagliari, after, 10, 15 minutes, we shot like 3 times on target, which was something new for us because in the last 3 games, it never happened. And magically, if you try to shot on target, eventually you score. Oh, in the first goal of Lazio, they scored for us, which was really unusual for us. But finally, Lazio played much better, tried to shot on target, and I think Ciro Immobile had made a huge impact again. I think this team cannot play without Ciro Immobile, or is much less dangerous than without Ciro?
Yeah, I mean, he's the standout story from this game. Obviously, because he's hit 200 goals in Serie A, which is an incredible landmark. And we can talk about that in a bit as well. And that is worth celebrating. And no wonder he's getting a lot of kind of front pages and a lot of space in the media this week on the back of that. But I think for those of us watching Lazio week in and week out, the actual performance itself was more important than the landmark, because we've been waiting to see a top performance from Ciro. It feels like pretty much the whole season. And look, he's had a lot of problems with fitness, with injuries, all the rest of it, getting back into full shape. But he looks pretty determined now. And yeah, that did feel like an old school Ciro performance. And it seems to kind of light up the rest of the team as well. Isaacson involved in a couple of the goals. Felipe Anderson managing to get one as well. It's really positive, because we've been complaining all season long about the forward line failing to produce. And really against a team like Cagliari, who, you know, on this terrible run of form, just got smashed by Roma a few days earlier. That's exactly the kind of game where they have to be producing in the attacking third, or else we'll really not be happy about it. So it was good that translated onto the pitch.
Yeah, and we have to say that Cagliari with Ranieri played a very defensive-minded tactic, at least in the first half. They were very defensive. And that was a typical game where Lazio would have struggled to score. So it was important to score, to find the goal. And we scored 3 times. The last time we did was against Frosinone in December. So it was a couple of months that Lazio didn't score 3 goals in a game. And this was the first time Lazio scored 3 goals in an away game this season. It's these numbers are terrible, right? This team is struggling massively to score, and I hope the fact that Ciro didn't play that much is part of the reason, right? But not the only reason. You mentioned Felipe Anderson, Isaacson. We have to talk about Luis Alberto. I mean, top players haven't performed so far consistently, at least.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if they can carry a degree of that kind of. No, it wasn't just really the goals. Obviously, like from everything you've just reeled off, scoring 3 goals is very significant for Lazio in a season where they've had so many problems. But it was actually, I think, the way that they managed to keep the game being played the way they wanted it to be played, which was nice and open. They were finding plenty of spaces, getting good overlaps, getting good runs into the box, I felt, from Guendouzi, from Kamada when he came on. Alberto had a really good chance. So it wasn't just the kind of like last season Lazio's conversion rate was insanely good. You know, the XG versus the actual amount of goals. I can't remember now on the top of my head what it was, but they were outperforming the chances they're creating, basically. And now it seems to be the opposite. But the chances created, the way the game was played, I think was a positive, because it's not just been, like I say, the lack of goals. I think, especially thinking back to that Napoli game, my God, I mean, it was just so dire, because it wasn't just that they were playing a defensive opponent, but they didn't have a clue what to do about it or how to find a way to kind of break that. So yeah, look, Bayern Munich, I'm going to keep coming back to this today, but it's, can they carry that through? I don't know. What do you think? Can they manage to kind of, is confidence and a big home crowd enough to kind of suddenly make you play with that freedom in a way that they've not been able to before now in a game that big against an opponent that good?
Well, when you play against a big team like this one, everybody should find the right motivation to perform or to play it best. So I think it's easy in a way for Lazio players to perform better against Bayern, give their best against Bayern Munich rather than Cagliari in a away game. So I think that's very important. That's an important test. Obviously, it's easier to score against Cagliari rather than against Bayern Munich. Even though seeing the last performance, I'm not sure about that. But definitely this performance rather than the result give this team a boost, because I thought we finally played decent football. Even with Cagliari trying to avoid everything, Lazio played decent football. Let's not forget that Scuffet made a couple of great saves in the first half. We created a lot of chances. Luis Alberto had a great shot. Kamada, who came in, hit the post. So it's not a game where you say, we shot 3 times on target, we scored 3 goals. We really dominated the match. And the other important thing, Alistair, we still didn't mention it, is we scored the second goal, and 30 seconds afterwards, Cagliari scored. And that could be the turning point of the game, right? How often do you remember games where Lazio scored and the other team immediately equalize or score back, and the game is over for us? So this was really important to see our team keep playing, even though the incredible Gaetano score that was unbelievable. So that was another positive sign, right?
Definitely. And especially because it was such a screamer, kind of out of nowhere. There's not much you can really do about that kind of goal. It was just too good. But yeah, I liked that. I liked their response. I also liked the way that they kept attacking to the end. It wasn't one of these games where they were nervous. So once they were in front, they were just trying to slow it down or, become too defensive. Even at 3-1, I thought bringing on Kamada for the final 15 minutes was interesting, given how little we've seen of him. But as soon as he came on the pitch, it seemed like, and with Tati, I guess, who came on and really has a point to prove, you're kind of bringing on hungry players looking to make an impact on the game. And Kamada very nearly scored a fourth, hit the post late on as well. So, yeah, it's a good attitude to have. And it does feel like, that kind of ties into the thing that Ciro was saying, and others seem to have been saying, that they're kind of enjoying themselves this week. They've felt like they've got a bit of that back, where they're playing with a smile on the face a bit more. It's not going to be possible to break open Bayern in the same way, of course, but I think it's a helpful reminder at a good time that they can play that way. They do have the players, the technique, the ability to kind of create chances and score goals and put pressure on teams, because it's not felt like that recently.
Alistair, another very important thing for me about Cagliari Lazio is there have been a lot of rumors in the past 2 weeks about players against Sarri, that the locker room, there are a lot of players complaining about Sarri, people asking for Lotito to sack Sarri, etc. I thought the game of Saturday's game proved that it's not true. The players are with the manager because they played for him. Sarri didn't change his point of view. We played with the 4-3-3. It was very similar to Sarri ball that we saw last year, for example. And we mentioned Ciro Immobile. He's one that shouldn't be really happy, right? He was benched against Atalanta. He's not starting every game like usually he did with Simone Inzaghi. Felipe Anderson, again, Isaacsen is one that is coming in and off. Isai started for the first time after ages, and he played well, to be honest. Kamada, as you were mentioning before, he didn't play the last 5 games. If you're not happy with the manager, you came in and you don't play. You just walk around. Instead, he came in and did some positive things. So I thought the most important thing was Il Messaggero. A lot of newspaper here in Rome said that the team was against Sarri. Well, Saturday game proved everybody wrong. It's not true. The players are still with Sarri. And this is really important because we know Lotito won't sack Sarri during the season. He will at least wait this summer. And with the players not playing for the manager, it's really complicated, not only to reach the Champions League, but even to qualify for the Europe League. So I thought that was a very important message.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I think the whole thing kind of built up. It escalated quite fast, I think, just on the back, because they were so soundly beaten by Atalanta. That was such a one-sided game that I feel like things built up very quickly, and frustrations that had been running over a number of months. I think they managed to bat those away over, well, while I was on holiday, basically, that period of 4 wins in a row. But even then, the
Not a
performances
coincidence.
in those games weren't always brilliantly impressive, were they? It was just that they were managing to get result. Whereas this was finally that combination of a good performance and a good result. So I think that was a great response. Sarri isn't going to change. You know, there's no point in people really complaining about this. I mean, he's had to deal with it his whole career, hasn't he? Why are you so rigid? Why don't you change from the 4-3-3? Try this, try that. And as we know, the response is always going to be that it's not really about the formation, it's about the application of his ideas. And the thing that I like this season is that although, as you mentioned before, a lot of the key players have been underperforming, especially compared to last year, everyone's kind of getting a chance, and that must be motivating if you're in this squad. Perhaps with the exception of Husai, who you mentioned, who's been a bit of a weirdly ignored player, and Pellegrini. But that's because they're up against Adam Maricic, who's absolutely 100% nailed on in this team. But other than that, you know, even Cataldi came into the team against Cagliari, played really well, I thought, had a good game. The forward line, okay, it took a while for Isaacson and Tati to get their chance, but since then they've had loads of chances. Same in the midfield with Guendouzi. Okay, Kamada obviously went out of favour, but is coming back in again now. So yeah, I just think that is a squad where it feels like it is the whole squad playing towards one goal, and everyone has a chance to fight their way into that team. Even Gila, look at what he's done. That's an inspiration to the rest of that squad. And yeah, I think that's very different to where Lazio have been in recent years, where you can basically name them 1 to 11,
Yeah.
and there's very little pressure or competition for places.
You mentioned Isaacson, and I wanted to ask you. I mean, the first goal is his assist, I would say. The second one, he shot on target. Scouffet make an unbelievable save, and Cheeto scores. But did he play well? Because I'm not convinced he had a good game. But even in not a great game, he's have a huge impact in the game, if you know what I mean. Right?
Yeah, I was furious about that because I've got him in my Fantacalcio team, and I didn't get any points for assists when he basically created 2 goals. Yeah, but that's what I like about him, though, because I think there is definitely still some doubt over how he coordinates with the team, how he links up, and there are a few kind of passes and runs that don't match up and things like that, and people throwing their arms up in the air. I think there's still a bit of that with Isaacson. But the thing I like about him that I've said from the very start is that he actually tries to make things happen. He's still got good courage to his game, which I don't think he should lose, because he's always going to try this run or try this pass or take on a shot in a way that other players would, pivot 180 degrees and start again. And I don't mind that, because I feel like the team has badly been lacking players like that this season.
Yeah.
So even if the overall 90 minutes, you can say, okay, it wasn't a perfect performance. Yeah, 2 of those goals come from him taking things on. And yeah, the one for Chiro's goal is, everyone talks about it being Chiro's goal, but it was a good effort from him too. It was a great save to set
Unbelievable.
it up. So
Yeah, it's very typical for us, right? Scouffet, it's an average or below average goalkeeper. Against us, he's been unbelievable. In the first half, he makes a couple of great saves,
should
right?
say Providel did as well, though.
But Provedel is, I would say, at the moment, the best goalkeeper in Serie A. Would you agree with me?
I would say Jan Sommer this season. Yeah.
In the last couple of games, hasn't been great, but yeah, I mean, it's there, right?
Well, no, yeah, he's definitely in the conversation for sure. But what I mean is more that it wasn't such a dominant performance that there was nothing for Cagliari in this game. We did rely on, I mean, obviously Gaetano scored that screamer, but also Providel made like four or five saves, a couple of them very good ones. So And yeah, he is finding that more, isn't it? I mean, I'm saying that like it's a recent thing, it's not. But at the very start of this season, we weren't seeing Providel, as
Yeah.
far as my terrible football memory goes back. We weren't seeing him make as many kind of game-changing saves as before, and now he seems to be doing that more regularly. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because it means opponents are creating chances, obviously.
Well, I guess we'll need the best Provedel on Wednesday anyway, right? Against Bayern Munich. We know they're going to have chances. They're going to take chances. So we hope that our goalkeeper will shine again on Wednesday. Um, Same thing about Felipe Anderson, right? He didn't have a great match, but he scored the decisive goal. So football sometimes is funny, right? I thought that, well, Provedel, man of the match. I don't know if you agree, but Cataldi had a great performance and he didn't have a chance. I thought Cataldi played really well. And I think maybe it's time if Sarri start thinking a little bit about a change. I really love Rovella, but Cataldi has this deep pass that it's very important for us, right? Especially for Chiro playing there close, on the offside. He's very good with the long ball and passing the ball on the back of the defender. It's create a lot of chances, and Chiro is very good at that. And this is something that Rovella doesn't do pretty much. I don't remember a single game where he did it, while Danilo tries it every single game. So, do you think?
Do you not think that's a legacy of playing under Inzaghi a bit though? Because if you look at Çalhanoğlu now for Inter, that's what he's always doing, is pinging those big passes. I mean, obviously that famous one against Juventus, but he does that a lot. And I think Cataldi was spent so long in that Inzaghi team that he's almost like still tuned into looking for that pass every time in a way that Ravella's never kind of been trained to.
Yeah, but he has to start doing it because we know how dangerous Chiro is in that type of situation. Well, in general, that created a lot of chances, right? I remember Guendouzi did it a couple of weeks ago with the Isaacsen, I think, and he scored. So, these type of passes are very dangerous. And again, I don't remember Rovella ever did it. So, do you think it's time to?
I think it suits Chiro, yeah. I think it's not necessarily the kind of game that Sarri wants to play is the only thing. And that's maybe part of the struggle all along with Chiro's form and fitness. It's not just been about him getting a bit older, but also him trying to adapt to the new style and so on. And clearly, he's still been contributing a lot of goals because he's just an absolutely natural goal sniffer, and he's always going to score. But yeah, that way of moving the ball quickly, he loves that, and he's so attuned. Again, he's also very attuned to doing that, being on the shoulder of the defender, making those runs in behind, getting into that space. His movement is brilliant. I've been saying it for years, and I just don't think if you're trying to kind of pass the ball into the goal in the final third that he's necessarily, got those little touches inside the box and small spaces and stuff. That's not really his game. So maybe it's a hybrid style that would suit Lazio best, where Sarri's getting his kind of idea of what he wants, but he's also, they can hit that ball when they need to. Because I'm sure Rovella can hit those balls. He's a very good player, very good technical player, but he's probably just not looking for them.
But I mean, when you're playing with Chiro, I mean, he's the type of player that suggests you that type of pass, right? He's always trying that movement. So that's my biggest concern I have at the moment, because we saw it against Cagliari. We created so many chances. Even Luis Alberto in the first 15 minutes tried that solution often. So I think, as you were mentioning, it's probably in the DNA of this team. It's, our heritage of a Simone Inzaghi type of football. And even though we change a lot of players, I think our best player, Ciro Immobile, is perfectly suited for that type of football. So we should try and insist to play that way.
Possibly. I mean, also he has lost a yard of pace. It has to be said, because he's got older and he's had all the injuries. But I think he is looking fitter, and he says he's feeling sharper. I mean, physically, he looks a bit sharper than he has done at other points. So that's really good. We should stop and appreciate the 200 goal landmark though, because it is crazy. If you look at the all-time list in Serie A, and well, he's up at number 8 now, but he's closing in on Baggio and Di Natale. So, and of those other 7 ahead of him, those 2 and Totti are the only other ones from the last 45 years on that list. So it is a kind of crazy, pantheon of greats kind of company to be in.
And he has been the faster to reach that level.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, he played how many years abroad? I mean, he hasn't been playing the whole career in Serie A, which makes it even crazier.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So that's really
and in Serie B as well.
Yeah.
But in the paper today they had a list goal by goal of all 200 of Ciro's goals, and if anyone ever needed reminding of like how many goals 200 is, it was quite a useful visual kind of example. It's like, that is a lot of goals that he's managed to get. So yeah, he will never, I don't think, sadly, really get the credit he deserves, because if he was going to, he would have by now. He's done everything. He's been Cagliari 3 times. He's won the European Golden Boot. He's achieved so much, and he still doesn't get it. So sadly, he won't, but at least he will among Lazio fans, that's for sure.
One thing we didn't mention, he scored his 2nd goal in Serie A, not from a penalty. I thought that was important. First goal was first game of the season against Lecce. And then only penalty.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I was wondering this. I meant to ask this. Yeah, good finish as well. I think kind of low-key good finish.
It was very difficult. It wasn't easy at all.
We could do with more of those, definitely. But his Champions League record is also surprisingly good. And surprise, surprise, something he also doesn't really get credit for, because everyone thinks Ciro abroad and they think disaster at Dortmund and Sevilla. Whereas actually his record playing in Europe is pretty strong. I don't have it in front of me right now, but
even with Borussia Dortmund, he scored a lot of goals in the Champions League.
Yeah,
and this season he has been very important. Let's not forget the 2 goals he scores against Celtic and the one against Feyenoord at home are the goals that allowed Lazio to finish the group 2nd. So that's really important. No penalties, as far as I remember, in the Champions League. So it's funny because Ciro scored more goals in the Champions League rather than Serie A. So that's really good. And I agree with you. It's incredible that nobody gives him credit for. And I don't know if you heard the words of Spalletti, what was it, last weekend, saying, I saw Retegui, he's in great shape. Have you forgot to talk about Ciro? I mean, it's embarrassing. I have Retegui on my fantasy football, by the way, and I don't remember last time he scored. So I don't think he's in great shape, honestly.
Yeah, I think people have just stopped talking about him in that conversation, which is. Yeah. No. I mean, you can kind of understand why if Italy are like turning a new leaf and doing a whole new thing. But the reality is that I just keep impressing on people that the last time Lazio, Italy won anything was the last Euros when who was up front for them? It was Ciro.
Yep.
And people were always responding, "Oh yeah, but he didn't score a single goal in the knockout stage, blah blah blah," and he was being carried. Well, I'm sorry, I just don't buy that, because Ciro is such a hard worker. His movement's so good. He helps the team so much that even if he isn't scoring goals, he's still allowing others to and helping the team. And the proof's in the pudding. And I don't remember when France won the World Cup in 2018 with Giroud up front not scoring a single goal. I don't remember the articles being Giroud's a disgrace. I remember them being Giroud's played such an amazing undercover agent role for this team, and he's such a hard worker. So it's all in the interpretation, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately it is, and Lazio has terrible bad press, and Ciro playing for Lazio don't get the credit he deserves. So I don't think it's nothing new. It's unfortunate. Maybe in 10 years' time, someone will start talking about Ciro and his incredible records. Talking about records, Alistair, if you have to pick the 11 for Wednesday, what's your selection?
Yeah, I thought we'd get onto this. I reckon I'll go with Mandas.
Well,
Well,
he played
yeah,
well in the derby, and you didn't see it, but
I did. I wasn't as convinced as everyone else seemed to be about him in that derby, but I mean, it was okay. It was fine. But we don't need to get into that right now. I think the 11 for Wednesday is quite interesting, just because there's been quite a lot of chopping and changing recently, and interesting substitutions and so on. I guess there's a difference between the 11 we think Sarri will pick and the 11 that we would pick ourselves.
yep.
That centre back though, Gila, you think?
Do you start Casale? I don't think Patrick. Well, we have to mention at the moment Patrick and Zaccagni are out. Today, the question is, are they going to be available for the bench? So they're not going to be available to start, I think, if a miracle doesn't happen. So the question is Casale, Gila. I know Kane should play, obviously, and he's quite a tall player, so maybe Gila could struggle a little bit. But do you play Casale for the first time since, I think, Verona Lazio as a starter? I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because Gila's played so much more recently, but because Casale was the first choice all of last season, he still feels more like the familiar guy to me, you know. But he's not had a great season. He's not been playing much, so you probably do just have to go with form. It's just that we've not really seen.
Yeah, I think the biggest question is who's playing around them, the left back and the right back. Well, Maruzic is starting, obviously. If he doesn't die before the game, he's going to start. But then on the opposite side, it's going to be Lazzari, Pellegrini, or Hisai, who played well, honestly, on Saturday.
I have a feeling he might go for Hisai. I mean, that was the first choice last year, and it's the more kind of conservative, cautious choice because they're going to be the less attacking options than Lazzari and Pellegrini. I don't think Sarri does really trust Lazzari as a defender all that much. So I think he's got a shot, Hisai, to start that game.
Midfield, we have so many question marks, Alistair. I mean, even midfield, do you play Rovella, Cataldi? Will Vecino start? He's not playing on Saturday. Let's mention that on Sunday, we have Lazio Bologna, and Romagnoli and Vecino won't be able to play because they got a stupid yellow card for Vecino on Saturday. So
yeah, that was really stupid.
Yeah,
I think it'll be Rovella, Alberto, Guendouzi, which feels like the kind of first choice three.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I can't imagine Alberto Guendouzi being dropped.
But
the
in
question
Europe,
is more if Cataldi keeps his place or not. He does like to randomly pick Cataldi for big games. It has happened,
especially in the derby. But in the Champions League, we saw often Vecino, Luis Alberto Camada.
Yeah, true. I think that's not happened for a while, though, is it?
Well, we didn't play the Champions League for a while, so.
No, I just mean Vecino playing in that role.
Yeah,
has kind of gone out of fashion a bit. No, I still think it'll be Rovella. Yeah,
Rovella, Luis Alberto Guendouzi.
I reckon. Yeah,
And
because
then
Rovella's so good defensively as well. He's really impressed me with that side of his game this season.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean the front row would be Ciro, Felipe Anderson, and Isaacsen, I guess. Or do you think Pedro has a chance?
I think it has to be those three, given the unavailability of Zaccagni and Pedro's recent form. Yeah, Pedro's just been like a pretty iconic member of this team in the Champions League so far this year, though, and got the big winner against Celtic, obviously, and has tons of experience in this competition. I think if he's ever going to bring out his best, it's going to be on a big Champions League night. So I do wonder if I think he might have a chance if in these couple of days of training, Sarri sees him working like a madman, really fired up. Isaacson is so inexperienced, really, in comparison, that he might be tempted. But then again, it's a good bench option too. So,
well, Isaacson could come in and when the Bayern defense is tired, he can be tough to mark if he's speedy and focused for the game. So yeah, I mean, we have option. Well, obviously, Zaccagni absence is massive, I would say. Do you think Tati Castellanos has a chance to start?
No. No, not after it's been Ciro mania the last few days, so I can't see that. Although it was good to see he did seem to be saying more, like accepting his position a bit more, saying, yeah, okay, I'm getting older. That doesn't mean I only have to play the last 20, 30 minutes of games, but it also does mean I can't necessarily play every minute of every game.
Yeah, I'm starting to get concerned. Tati Castellanos played too much with the back to the goal. And for a number 9, it's difficult to score if you play every time like that. So Ciro is much better. He's never in that position. He's always facing the goal, and it makes it easier to score, to be dangerous, etc. I think Tati has to improve. I think he has quality, especially when he's offside. He's amazing. But, he needs to score even when he's in the right position.
Yeah, I mean, it would be an amazing moment for him to finally score another goal. Yeah, I don't know. How are you feeling about it? What are you predicting?
I hate prediction, but I think it's an open game. I think Lazio has to try to win this game to play the away game with a little bit of chances. I'm not saying we're going through, but if you don't win at home, I mean, you don't have chances, right? It's going to be really complicated.
All I want as an absolute minimum is for this game to at least just still be open in the second leg, because we didn't get that last time. The second leg was like a friendly match last time because of the result. So
you pointed something right. I mean, Lazio team last time was so afraid. They didn't even try. I mean, I want to see a team that knows that they're playing against a top team in Europe, but still believe they have chances. They can win it, at least at home. I mean, you have to play. This is the most important thing. I don't want to see the same game of last time, where Lazio pretty much gave up before entering the pitch. We have to play. Then, you can lose, obviously, against Bayern. Nothing would complain about that, but you have to give it a try. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. Although, a boring 0-0 draw, I'd take that to Munich any day of the week. So
nah,
it's the second leg where you can really go into it with the feeling of it being a free shot. I think it's good that the first leg's at home in this case. It usually isn't, but I think that it's going to be really, really difficult in Munich. So at least we've got a chance to give ourselves a chance here. So
yeah. Well, crossing fingers. We're going to be back after the Champions League game. I think we have to do a podcast after Lazio Bayern Munich. And thanks again, Alistair, for joining me. Thanks everybody at home for supporting us on our Patreon page, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Membership starts at $2 a month. And we'll be back after Lazio Bayern. Crossing fingers. Take care, guys.
Cheers.